Okay, so this is my second time filming this because I fear I did not make enough sense the first time I filmed it. I hope I make some sense this time. I might not make a lot of sense. I'm not gonna lie. So hello, my good people of YouTube. I am here with a presentation for you. And it is a presentation where we will be trying to find the most optimal birthday to go on Big Brother. So what is this? Using astrology, I am going to see if I can find the most optimal birthday. You might be thinking to yourself, huh? And so here's my explanation. Basically, I gathered up all of the US house guests from seasons 2 through 27, and I compiled all of their astrological placement to the best of my knowledge, to be fair. So if their birthdays aren't accurate, that's on Google, not on me. And using their astrological placements, I will be trying to find which ones are the best, which ones have the highest success rate, you might say. And then once we find those placements, we're going to search for specific dates that match those placements so that we can find the most optimal birthday. You might still be confused, and all I have to say is just trust me, bro. Just trust the process. I will take you along with me so that you can figure out what it is that I'm talking about, because I fear I might be the first person to have ever even considered doing this. But once I got it in my head, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I'm the type of person where I kind of just have to follow the thought process. So here we go. Before we move on much further, I must break the fourth wall. This isn't that serious. And I say that for a couple of reasons. First of all, I don't need you writing paragraphs in my comment section saying how astrology is stupid and useless and this doesn't mean anything. You don't need to tell me. It's fine. This is just for fun. It's fine. I'm not taking this that seriously. Okay? And neither should you. Frankly, I just really like astrology. I've been into it since I was a little girl, and I used to read the magazine Astro Girl religiously. So it's just something I've always liked. Frankly, I find comfort in finding meaning in how random our world is, and so that's just why I like astrology. You don't need to try to convince me otherwise. This is not me trying to convince you otherwise if you don't believe in astrology. This is just for fun. Maybe you'll learn something. It's fine. It's fine. Don't take it that seriously. The other thing that I wanted to say, because while I was setting this up, I kept getting this thought in my head. And so I am going to give this disclaimer. So if I need to use this in court, I can. But if your birthday happens to show up in these lists of optimal birthdays, and then you decide to apply to Big Brother specifically because of that reason, and then you get on Big Brother because you applied because of my presentation, and you don't do well, I will not let you sue me for emotional damages. I don't need you to take this that seriously. Now, it would be interesting if you did have one of these birthdays and then you went on and you still did well. I would be very interested to know that. However, this is not me telling you to do that. And so if you try to sue me, I will pull up this section in court so that they know I wasn't actually telling you to go on Big Brother. Let's have an astrology lesson. Because I need you to be on the same page as me before we go into some of the data that we're going to be talking about. Because trust me, if you don't have this background knowledge, you're going to be very, very confused about what I'm talking about. I'm not going to lie. Also, if you know a good amount about astrology, you might not need this preview. But I'm doing this under the assumption that most people don't know as much about astrology that I do. So you could skip forward if you know a lot about astrology, but I'd recommend just watching as like a general preview so that we can be on the same page. I'm gonna be introducing this lesson as if you don't know anything about astrology, because I would guess that there are people watching this video who don't know anything about astrology. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is how if you don't know anything about astrology, this is probably all you know about it. And this is going to seem like a confusing image. But basically what I'm showing off is this is a sun sign, and this sun sign is in Cancer. That's what I am. I'm a Cancer. Like the crab, not the disease. Probably what you know is whatever your sign is. You know, I was born July 17th, that makes me a Cancer. If I was born August 1st, I'd be a Leo. That's probably what you think you know about astrology. And yes, it seems very general and very broad, and one of the reasons why people don't take astrology seriously is that, you know, you have to be very general about these things so it can fit a bunch of different people, yada, 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 yada. But what I want to show you is there's a lot more involved in astrology than what you might think there is. That makes it actually very hyper-specific to you. So what I'm showing you right now is just my birth chart. This is the picture of the sky when I was born. It's the exact time I was born, the exact date, the exact year. No one else would have this exact birth chart unless they were born the exact year, day, and time as me. Being born at a different time is going to shift a little bit. It's probably going to still be pretty similar, but this chart is very specific to me. Right? So what I'm trying to point out is that we can actually get really specific when we look for just specific placements in astrology, because there's more than just the sun sign. As you can see, so this is my sun sign, and then we've got things like Mercury, Venus, we've got Saturn over here, we've got the moon, we've got a lot of different things in this chart. And so what I'm interested in looking at is the different placements that the different planets are in. Because while my sun is in Cancer, and so that makes me a Cancer, you know, my Saturn is in Aries, my Mercury is in Leo, my moon is in Sagittarius. They're all in different placements. And so I want to see if we can find different placements and find specific birthdays based off of that. While birth charts can be very specific, mostly because of your time of birth, I will admit there's no way for me to know what time these Big Brother contestants were born. There is just no possible way for me to know that. And it'd be a little creepy if I did know that. So we are a bit limited in what we can deduce based off of these Big Brother contestants. So really what we're just going to be looking at are planets. These other things that like make up the entirety of a birth chart, we can't really look at. And that's okay.
We don't need to know that much about people.
But I did just want to point out that that's a huge part of a birth chart. I would say if you don't know what time you were born, you're not going to get the full picture of your birth chart. Just in case you wanted to look it up, you know? So let's go into the things that we are going to be looking at when it comes to these Big Brother contestants, because I want to make sure that you have good background knowledge before we get into it. And really what we're going to mostly be focusing on are the planets. And yes, I know the moon and the sun aren't a planet. I know Pluto's not a planet anymore, but I do like to consider Pluto a planet. But we call them planets in astrology, so just calm down. Basically, we're going to be talking about them differently based off of what type of planet there are. And I consider planets being of one of three types. There's personal planets, social planets, and generational planets. First of all, I'm going to briefly touch on generational planets, and that's Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. We're not going to be really discussing Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto. And that's because these are considered generational planets. Basically, they're planets that you share with your entire generation. So most of Gen Z have the same Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Most of millennials have the same Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. It's not going to be super helpful with this investigation that we're having, because all it's really going to tell us is that there's a lot of Gen Xers and millennials that have gone on Big Brother, which isn't a surprise considering that it started in 2001. So while I find it interesting in its own way, like looking at generational planets, we're not going to really delve into it in this context because it's not going to really give us that interesting of information. But I did just want to briefly provide that these are planets that are a part of your birth chart. I'm just not going to be looking at them for this experiment. What we are going to be looking at are personal planets. These we're going to get very specific about. And personal planets include your sun, your moon, your Mercury, and your Venus. Your sun sign is basically like what you probably know about astrology if you don't know a lot about astrology. It's just your sign. Like if someone were to ask you what's your sign, you'd respond with your sun sign. I think of it as like your general personality. So I was thinking about it. I kind of think of it in terms of like, it's your genre. Like if you were to go in the Barnes & Noble and find like the romance section, there's going to be a lot of different books within the romance section, but they're all the same genre. Like a Bridgerton book is very different from an Emily Henry book, you know? But they're still the same genre. And that's what I think of like your sun sign being. It tells you what genre you are. But you're not going to be the same as every single sun sign because you've got different things going on underneath, you know?
That's my metaphor.
Your moon sign is like your inner self. I think of it as like, it tells you what you need as opposed to what you want. Your sun sign is what you want. Your moon sign is what you need internally. Your Mercury sign is like how you communicate, how you express yourself, how you speak to others. And your Venus sign is how you express and receive love. They're all very personal to you. These planets move rather quickly, so I would say they change signs about every month. The moon changes its sign like every few days, and so that one goes really quickly. But because of that, we can actually get very specific when we're looking at personal planets because there's a lot of different things like that are going on, and it cycles through quickly enough that it can give us some interesting information. Now, social planets are a little bit different. Social planets are Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Your Mars tells you kind of how you handle conflict, how you might express anger or frustration. Your Jupiter is like your luck. It also talks about like the places where you might have abundance. And Saturn is kind of all about discipline, and it restricts whatever placement it's in, if that makes sense. And the reason why these are called social planets is because you basically share these same planets with your peer group from when you went to school. So if the people who are in the same grade as you probably had the same Mars, Jupiter, or Saturn sign as you. If someone was like a year above you, they might share the same Jupiter and Saturn as you, but maybe they have a different Mars, maybe they have a different Jupiter. If, say, like you were a freshman and there was a senior, they might have an entirely different Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, but it's only going to be like a few signs off in that sense. So these are planets that move slowly enough that you do share the same placement as a lot of people that you would know. But they still move quickly enough that I think they come up with some interesting information for this experiment. So we are going to be looking at Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn in this experiment of ours, but we need to be a little bit broader when we're talking about that. And you'll understand what I mean once we get there, but we just can't be quite as specific because, trust me, it's gonna make this experiment impossible. I tried. It was not possible. I needed to be broader with it. And so one more thing before we fully get into our experiment. And that is that I want to briefly talk about the different zodiac signs to you in case you don't know a lot about them. I'd say most people, what they would know about the different zodiac signs would just be what their specific sign is. They've probably read about it and know a little bit about it. But you might not know what the other zodiac signs are all about. So I just want to give a brief introduction of all of them. I would say might be helpful to kind of have this information off to the side as we move forward, because I'm probably not going to delve too deep into each sign when it comes up, because that would get a little too much, and I don't think you'd find that very interesting. I think the best way to look at the signs is to divide them up into their elements as well as their modalities. And then if you combine what its element and modality is, it's going to help you understand that sign more. So the element of a sign kind of gives it its general vibe, in my opinion. I kind of think of it as it divides the signs up into being introverted versus extroverted, as well as being emotional versus thinking. Almost like a Myers-Briggs personality test in a weird way, you know? I think of it as fire signs and air signs are extroverted, and earth signs and water signs are more introverted, whereas fire signs and water signs are more emotional, and earth signs and air signs are more logical and thinking. So what do all of these elements mean? Frankly, I find them pretty straightforward, but I don't know if that's because I've been reading Astro Girl since I was in elementary school. But the vibe of the element kind of just gives you the vibe of that set of signs. So fire signs include Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. They are fiery. They kind of just exude a lot of energy. They're very expressive. I'm a fire dominant, which means I have mostly fire in my chart. I also have a fire grand trine. It's beautiful.
Anyway.
Earth signs are grounded. They value practicality. They're very stable, you know. Air signs, I might think of them as being a little flighty. That's kind of the closest thing I can think of as just being air. I think in general, they're considered kind of chatty, kind of talkative, but they're also very intelligent, and they just really like ideas and thinking, you know? And then water signs are very emotional. They're very intuitive. They're like the empaths of the zodiac cycle. I guess I didn't say which sign went with each one, but you can read that on my little presentation. Modality. Modality doesn't get talked about as much as elements do. So even if you have a vague understanding of astrology, you might not know about modality. But I find this really helpful when pairing with elements to understand the different zodiac signs. And that's because each modality has one fire, one earth, one air, and one water sign. So that means basically I can mix and match and just find my own zodiac sign if I wanted to. So modality means kind of how you respond to your environment, I'd say. So there's cardinal signs, fixed signs, and mutable signs. Cardinal signs are signs that like to take actions with their surroundings. They take charge, and that includes Aries, Capricorn, Libra, and Cancer. Fixed signs kind of stay put. They stay the course of their original idea. They don't kind of let their environment influence them, if that makes sense. Fixed signs are Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio. And mutable signs like to flow with their environment. They change with their surroundings. And that includes Sagittarius, Virgo, Gemini, and Pisces. So I find it kind of helpful to like combine their element and their modality. So like Cancer is a cardinal water sign. So they take charge with their emotions. Whereas like Gemini is a mutable air sign. They flow with their ideas. Now, that might not be a very fun way to think about the zodiac signs. And so I have a different way that might help you remember them. And when I think of the different zodiac signs, I like to think of them as high school cliques. Like I imagine a giant cafeteria, and these are all of the different zodiac signs, and this is how I imagine them. Now, I want to be clear. Just because you're one of these signs, that doesn't mean I think you're a part of this high school clique. Very the opposite. For example, I'm a Cancer, and on here I have listed that Cancers are the emos. I could not be further from that. I was an honor student who did theater. But really, this is just what I think like gives off the vibe of the sign, to be quite honest. And it's in a way that I can't really describe why. But I feel like if you know astrology, you would agree with what I have to say about all of these. This isn't meant to be thought too hard about, but this is just how I like to describe their general vibes. And it might be helpful to you if you don't know a lot about the different signs. And so this is what I have listed. Aries are the jocks, duh. Taurus are the stoners. You know, they get the munchies and they're a little lazy, but it's okay, we still love them. Gemini are the gossip columnists. Cancers are the emos. Leos are very clearly the theater kids. Like that, there's nothing more clear to me than Leos being the theater kids. Virgos are the straight A, perfectionist, honors kids. Libras are like the popular kids or like the fashionistas, or both. I think of like Gossip Girl whenever I think of Libra. Scorpios are like the bad boys / the rebels. They're the kids that skip gym class and smoke underneath the bleachers. Sagittariuses are the hippies. Capricorns are the future business leaders of America. That one's also very clear to me. Very clear to me. Aquarius is like the social activists. They're the kids that would chain themselves to a tree. And then Pisces are the artsy kids. So
take that information for what you want.
Now, I just want to put some notes before we move forward. We're almost there. We're almost there. So the first thing that I want to mention is that moon signs are a bit hard to find if you don't know the time of birth. And by that, what I mean is like half of them, you know exactly what moon sign they have, just based off the day. And then there's the other half where it could be between two different signs. And the only way to know for sure is to know what time they were born. So for the purposes of this experiment, I just picked the one that I thought embodied that person the best. I can't say it's 100% accurate, so don't come at me. I'm just doing my best. But I think moon signs are important and I like including them. And they kind of help specify the exact day. Like I kind of need the moon sign to find the exact day. So I wanted to include moon signs, but I'm also acknowledging right here that not all of them are 100% accurate. But I tried my best. Some of them are accurate, but I tried my best. The other thing I want to mention is that Mercury and Venus signs work a little funky. And what I mean by that is based off of your sun sign, you can only have a certain Mercury and Venus sign. And this will be important as we move forward with this experiment because it does limit what Mercury and Venus signs we can give to certain sun signs. And that's because the way that Mercury works is that you can only have either your sign or the sign before or after you. So for example, I'm a Cancer, right? So my Mercury sign can only be Gemini, Cancer, or Leo. Those are the only 3 options I can have as a Mercury sign. It's just not possible for me to have any other Mercury sign, okay? Venus works similarly, but is a little less specific because I can have the 2 signs before me or the 2 signs after me. So for my Venus sign, I can have Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, or Virgo. Those are the only options that I can have as a Venus sign based off of my sun sign. So I just wanted to mention that before we move forward because I keep forgetting to mention that, and it is important because it's just not possible to have anything else. And so I just wanted to mention that. The last thing I just want to mention is I genuinely don't know if this makes a lot of sense. I kind of went a little intense with this, and it might be niche, but I find it interesting. And so perhaps someone else will. And usually when I have these ideas, I just kind of do them, and then they live in the graveyard of my Google Drive because I lost my hyperfixation. And I figured, why not post it on the internet for internet clout instead? Because there might be other people who find this interesting. I don't know. All right, so thank you for bearing with me as I went through my little astrology lesson. Let's get into the actual experiment, shall we? What is the most optimal Big Brother birthday? So first of all, I just wanted to lay out what all of the sun signs look like altogether. There are a total of 344 players. This is taken from the US seasons 2 through 27. I did take out all of the returning players if they showed up on like another season. So this is just all 344 players altogether. And basically the purposes of these slides is just to show you kind of how evenly split all the signs are to start off with, so that you understand if there's any like biases towards one sign or the other. That's what I'm doing here. There's more Leos and there's not a lot of Aries, but they're still fairly evenly split. And in a similar way, I just wanted to show you the even split between the elements and the modalities. You're probably not going to be able to see like the labels super well, so I'm just going to tell you what colors are associated with them. And I think they're pretty obvious, but maybe they're not, I don't know. So fire signs are red, water signs are blue, earth signs are green, air signs are pink, cardinal signs are red, mutable signs are yellow, and fixed signs are blue. But basically you can see it's pretty evenly split. There's a little more fire signs, but otherwise pretty evenly split. So here's what we're gonna do. I, off camera, calculated all of their average placements. Took a while, I'm not gonna lie. And then I ranked them accordingly. And so this is my findings. Capricorn and Geminis performed the best and have the best average placements. And Pisces and Libra performed the worst and have the worst average placement. However, I also wanted to look at our elements and our modalities. And so looking at our elements, air signs perform the best, and water signs perform the worst, and cardinal signs perform the best, and fixed signs performed the worst. And so using this information, I want to pick out 3 different zodiac signs for us to investigate more so that we can find the optimal birthday. So I picked the top 2 signs, Capricorn and Gemini. And then this might be a little controversial, but I also picked Libra. Even though it's at the bottom, it is the air sign that is also a cardinal sign. And so because those were the elements and modality that had the most rank, I decided to go with Libra. It's just kind of like giving them a chance. And so when we end up looking for the optimal date, the sun signs that we are going to look at are going to be Capricorn, Gemini, and Libra. Okay, following me? And so we also want to look at our moon signs. Again, just kind of an overview of all of the different moon signs and how they break down amongst the 344 contestants. Same way with elements and modality, pretty evenly split. When ranking the moon signs, we have Aries and Scorpio as our top two, and then we have Virgo and Pisces as our bottom two. Fire signs perform the best, and cardinal signs perform the best. It just so happens Aries, which is the top of our ranking here, is the fire cardinal sign. So that kind of works out there. The moon signs that I picked out were the top two, Aries and Scorpio. And then I decided to go with Leo because it is a fire sign and it is a fixed sign. And fixed signs did pretty decently as well. When I was looking at the other signs that were ahead of it, it just didn't feel like it fit super well with this kind of general overview that we had. So I like to pick out one just to like give it a chance that maybe isn't like considered the most optimal, but I just believe in, you know. Anyway, so along with our sun signs, Capricorn, Gemini, and Libra, we are going to be looking at the moon signs, Aries, Scorpio, and Leo, okay? Now, as far as Mercury signs go, again, I wanted to just give you a general overview, along with its modality and its elements. Now, I did mention we need to be a little, when it comes to Mercury and Venus, it does depend on the sun sign. But regardless of that, I still wanted to see if I could pick out my top 3 Mercury signs, independent of what the sun signs that we picked out were. So I'll tell you how we figure that out in the end. But we're still just going to be looking at what I want to pick out as my 3 favorites in terms of the Mercury signs. So we can see here that Capricorns clearly perform the best, Capricorn Mercuries, and Aquarius Mercuries clearly performed the worst, which is kind of interesting. Earth signs tend to perform the best, and cardinal signs also perform the best. And again, it just so happens that Capricorn, which is our top sign right here, is the Earth cardinal sign. When it comes to what we're picking out, I picked out the top 2, which are Capricorn and Taurus. And then I decided to go with Cancer as our 3rd one because it is a water sign, which is the 2nd element in our list. And it's also a cardinal sign, which is the 1st element here. See, Scorpio, which is 3rd on our list, is a water sign and a fixed sign, which fixed signs were considered the worst. So I just thought it would have worked out better choosing Cancer over Scorpio. That's why I did that. So when we're looking at Mercury signs, we're going to be looking at Capricorn, Cancer, and Taurus. Here's an overview of all of the Venus signs for all 344 contestants. And here's the overview for the elements and the modalities of all of the Venus signs. As we can see when we rank the Venus signs, a Taurus Venus did the best, and an Aries Venus did the worst. Water signs did the best, and fixed signs also did the best. When I looked at which ones I wanted to pick out, I chose Taurus because it was number 1. And then I decided to go with Scorpio and Pisces because they are both water signs. And Scorpio is the water fixed sign, and Pisces is the water mutable sign. Now Sagittarius, which ranks 2nd, is a fire sign, which is ranked 3rd, and the mutable sign, which is ranked 2nd. I just thought it'd be better to go with the water signs because fire didn't do quite as well as water did. Just follow me. So for our Venus signs, I picked out Scorpio, Taurus, and Pisces. Now, when we get into our social planets, we need to be a little more broad. And so we'll see here how I choose to broaden up our scope for our Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn signs. But to start off, this is our general overview of Mars signs. This is its breakdown for elements and modality. And then here's how it ranked out as far as placements go. An Aquarius Mars ranked the best, and a Capricorn Mars ranked the worst. Air signs did the best, and fixed signs also did the best. Now, what I decided to do was I decided that I wanted to single out air and earth signs, and I wanted to single out fixed and mutable signs. But basically what I wanted to do was take the fixed and mutable air signs and the fixed and mutable earth signs. And so that includes Aquarius, Virgo, Taurus, and Gemini. That's how we're going to start broadening up this category. Is instead of picking out 3 different signs, we are picking out 4 different signs. So when we start to look at these actual charts, we are going to be looking for a Mars sign that is either in Aquarius, Gemini, Taurus, or Virgo. For Jupiter, we're going to get even more broad. So follow me. Again, here's just kind of the general overview of Jupiter signs within all 344 contestants. Here's its breakdown as far as modality and elements. And then when I looked at Jupiter signs, I didn't even look at how the individual zodiac signs ranked. Instead, I just looked at its elements and its modality. And what I wanted to do was just pick out one element and one modality that is going to be included. And so I just picked the top ones, earth and mutable. So that means that we are going to include all earth signs and all mutable signs when we are looking at our Jupiter. So the earth signs are Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. And then we're going to include all mutable signs, which includes Sagittarius, Gemini, Pisces, and Virgo, which we already have in our group. So we are looking at 6 different possible Jupiter signs that we can search for in this experiment of ours. So you can see that part's getting broader. We're opening up our scope. And then Saturn, we need to get even more broad. And so you can see why this is kind of a lengthy experiment of mine. But also, trust me, I needed to do this because it would have become impossible to find anything. Anyway, so this is the general overview of all the Saturn signs with all 344 contestants. Here's its breakdown in terms of element and modality. And here's the elements and modalities ranked. Basically, I decided to go with all water signs, all air signs, and all fixed signs when we're looking at Saturn. Mostly that came down to the fact that fire, earth, mutable, and cardinal all had 8 as its average placement, and then the other 3 had 7. So that's how I picked it. But so this basically means that we're going to include all water signs, which includes Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, all air signs, which include Libra, Gemini, and Aquarius, and all fixed signs, which would include the fire fixed sign, which is Leo, and the earth fixed sign, which is Taurus, because we already have Scorpio and Aquarius in our mix. So we have a possibility of having 8 different Saturn signs when we are looking at the Saturn placement. So now, using all of this information, I wanted to find possible different combinations that we can look at in order to find a specific date. Now, what do I mean by that? So think back to the fact that I said that your Mercury and Venus sign are dependent on your sun sign. So I found those different combinations that we could possibly look at. So as far as our Capricorn sun, we're going to be looking at a Capricorn sun that has a Capricorn Mercury and then a Scorpio Venus, because we located that Capricorn would be a good Mercury sign and we located that Scorpio would be a good Venus sign. Now, similarly, we're going to also be looking at a Capricorn with a Capricorn Mercury and a Pisces Venus, because we also saw that Pisces was a good Venus sign. So those are all of the placements in terms of Capricorn that we're going to be looking at. For Gemini, we're going to be looking at a Gemini with a Cancer Mercury and a Taurus Venus, because Cancer Mercury and Taurus Venus were 2 signs that we identified. We are also going to look at a Gemini Sun with a Taurus Mercury and a Taurus Venus, because we also included Taurus in our optimal Mercury signs. Finally, we have Libra, which was one of the sun signs that we identified. And there were no Mercury signs that we had identified that would match with Libra. So what I did is I went back to the Mercury signs and I tried to find the best Mercury that could possibly go with Libra. And I identified Scorpio as that sign. So when we look at our Libra placements, it's going to be Libra with a Scorpio Mercury and a Scorpio Venus. Okay? Now, all of these combinations can match with any of our moon signs. So we want any of these combinations to also have an Aries moon, a Scorpio moon, or a Leo moon. As well as that, we're going to be looking for placements that have either a Taurus, Gemini, Virgo, or Aquarius Mars, and have an Earth or mutable Jupiter, and have an air, water, or fixed Saturn. So this is a lot of information that we're trying to narrow down. And how did I do this? You might be asking. Well, there is a website called Astrology, and they have this nice little search engine tool. It's called an ephemeris search engine. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but basically you can put in specific Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, whatever, and you can see if there is a date that matches any of those. This took a long time because I had a lot of different possibilities that I was looking at. Luckily, I could put in general categories like mutable or cardinal or water signs. And so that helped me a lot, because if I was putting in like just the individual like 8, 6, whatever, like Saturn and Jupiter signs I had, this would have taken me days. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I don't recommend doing this. It was kind of unhinged of me, but I did it, and we're gonna see what I found. So I just recorded the dates that matched the combinations that we had previously picked out. And that's what I did. These are the dates. I was only looking at dates between 1980 and like a little bit beyond where we are right now, because I needed a place, I needed some kind of boundary for myself. So if you were born in the 70s, I'm sorry. But anyway, these are the optimal birthdays to go on Big Brother. If you were born in 1994, the best birthdays are December 22nd, December 23rd, December 27th, December 28th, and December 29th. If you were born in 1998, the best birthdays are June 17th, June 18th, and June 19th. If you were born in 2000, the best birthdays are September 29th, September 30th, October 1st, October 11th, October 12th, October 13th, and October 14th. And if you are a child, I guess you'd be 13. You're still a child if you're 13. But if you are a 13-year-old and born in 2012, the best birthdays are January 16th, January 17th, and January 18th. So these are the optimal birthdays. And there is no one who has been on Big Brother that has any of these birthdays. And so we have not found the true optimal player of Big Brother yet. Now you might be wondering, if I'm planning on having a child, what days should my child be born in order for them to have an optimal Big Brother birthdays? And that would be October 6th, 2032, October 7th, 2032, and October 8th, 2032. So mark that on your calendar. That's when you should have a baby in order for them to be the optimal Big Brother player. So then I was interested to see if there was anyone who had like placements that were anywhere close to these placements. And I did identify 2 Big Brother contestants. And basically they have the optimal, Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Venus sign, but it's their Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn sign that doesn't fully match up with the findings that we have right here. And that's Brett and Paul. Honestly, there could be a lot worse Big Brother players to identify than Brett and Paul. I mean, frankly, Brett was probably like one of the better players after Tyler and BB20. Like he was kind of like Tyler's, main adversary. And then I mean Paul. Paul is known as like one of the best to never win. But we could consider the fact that they have not the optimal Mars and Jupiter sign. Maybe that's why they lost in the final two twice. You know, if only they had the correct Mars and Jupiter sign, you know, Paul could have been a two-time winner, but it just wasn't in the stars, you know? Now I know what you're thinking, but Hannah, this is just looking at average placement. I want to win. What's the best birthday in order to win the game? And I got you. So when we're looking at the winners, we're gonna be looking at this data a little bit differently because I can't do average placement because they all won. All of the placements are gonna be the same, you know? So instead, I'm going to look at the general breakdown of all of the different signs of our winners. So this is how our winners' sun signs break down. There are a majority of Capricorns, just in general. If we look at all 12 signs, Capricorn has won the most. When we look at the elements, it looks like earth signs win out the most. And when we look at the modalities, it looks like cardinal signs win out the most. And this is also fitting. Capricorn is the earth cardinal sign. So we for sure want to look at Capricorn as being one of our sun signs that we're going to be looking at. Now for the other two signs that I wanted to look at, I decided to go with Cancer as one of them. It's not just because I'm biased and because I'm a Cancer, but because Cancer does have the second most when looking at all 12 signs put together. It's also a cardinal sign, and water signs are the second most popular element. And so I think it's fitting to include Cancer in there. I also wanted to include Taurus because it is an earth sign, and fixed signs are pretty closely aligned with cardinal signs in terms of the modality. And so I thought Taurus would be the third best sun sign to look at. And so for our sun signs, we are looking at Capricorn, Cancer, or Taurus. All right. Now for our moon sign, this is the breakdown of all the moon signs amongst the different winners. We can see that in terms of their elements, water signs kind of barely beat out fire signs in terms of their elements. And then for their modality, there's a split between mutable and cardinal signs. When I'm looking at all 12 zodiac signs as a whole, Cancer and Sagittarius have the biggest chunk of the pie. And so I did want to look at both Cancer and Sagittarius moon signs when we're looking at winners' placements. I'm also a Sagittarius moon. It's not bias. It's just data. There's actually two winners that share my exact sun and moon combination. One of them is June Song. The other one is Mike Bookie, but I hate Mike Bookie, so I was kind of offended when I saw that. Anyway, and so then the other moon sign placement that I wanted to identify was Pisces, because it is a water sign and a mutable sign. So that kind of mixed up the two largest placements for element and modality. And so along with our sun signs, Capricorn, Cancer, and Taurus, we're going to be looking at a moon sign that is in either Cancer, Pisces, or Sagittarius. For our Mercury signs, we can see that as far as modality goes, cardinal signs are very clearly the majority here. When we look at the element, earth signs make up the most, but then we have a pretty even split between fire and air signs. And of course, when we are looking at just all 12 signs in general, Capricorn makes up the biggest chunk, having a good fourth of the pie here. So what I decided to do when picking out my Mercury signs, I really wanted to focus in on cardinal signs. And so clearly I'm picking Capricorn, and then I decided to go with the fire cardinal sign and the air cardinal sign. And so that is Aries and Libra. And so for our Mercury signs, we're going to be looking at Capricorn, Aries, and Libra. For Venus, we can see that our modalities are pretty even here. So we're not going to be focusing on modality all that much. But when we look at the elements, fire signs are very small in this pie. So we kind of want to focus in on, I think, water and earth signs the most, but we can probably consider some air signs as well. When I look at all 12 of the signs together, Scorpio, Capricorn, and Gemini have the biggest chunk of the pie. None of those are fire signs, and so I just decided to include all 3 of those as our Venus signs that we're going to be looking at: Scorpio, Capricorn, and Gemini. So now we are going to start looking at the social planets, and again, we want to be a little more broad when looking at our social planets. So for our Mars signs, we can see that air and earth signs tend to make up the majority of the Mars signs. And then while the modalities are fairly evenly split, cardinal signs just have a little bit less than mutable and fixed signs. And so I want to look at the fixed and mutable earth signs as well as the fixed and mutable air signs. And so that is Taurus and Virgo, as well as Gemini and Aquarius. So those are the Mars signs that we are going to be focusing on. As far as Jupiter goes, we can see that there is a lot of cardinal energy for our Jupiter signs. And so clearly we are going to pick out a cardinal Jupiter. But I also wanted to pick out an element to go with Jupiter as well. And we can see in this graph that cardinal signs kind of barely beat out water signs as far as the element goes. So we are going to be looking at either a cardinal or fire Jupiter sign. And so that includes our cardinal signs, which are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And our fire signs, we already said Aries, and so we're going to include Leo and Sagittarius in there as well. For our Saturn signs, we can see that fixed signs have the most in terms of modalities, so we're going to try to look for fixed Saturn signs. And water signs have the most in terms of element. So we're going to look for water elements. Now, when looking at both of these, I think the second most important modality or element would be mutable signs here in modality. And so what we are going to end up looking for are going to be a Saturn sign that's either a water sign, a fixed sign, or a mutable sign. And so that includes our water signs, which are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And our fixed signs that include Leo, Taurus, and Aquarius. And our mutable signs that would also include Virgo, Gemini, and Sagittarius, right? Yes. So now we can come up with possible combinations. Again, we need to find the correct Mercury and Venus signs that will go with our sun signs. But we also want to keep in mind the Mercury and Venus signs that we already identified. So for our Capricorn placement, we can have a Capricorn Sun, Capricorn Mercury, and a Scorpio Venus. But we can also have a Capricorn Sun, Capricorn Mercury, and a Capricorn Venus. Those are the Capricorn placements that we're going to be looking at. For Cancer, we can have a Cancer Sun. None of our Mercuries worked out with Cancer. And so again, I went back and I tried to find the best Mercury sign that I could pair up with Cancer, and I chose Leo. And then we can have a Gemini Venus to go along with that as well. For Taurus, we can have a Taurus Sun, an Aries Mercury, and a Gemini Venus. And then we still had Libra as one of our Mercuries that we had identified. And so I wanted to find a sun sign that would work with Libra. And I identified Scorpio as that sun sign. And so we can have a Scorpio Sun, a Libra Mercury, and a Scorpio Venus. Now, again, any of these combinations can have any of our moon signs that we identified with, which is Cancer, Pisces, and Sagittarius. And we are looking for all of these combinations to have either a Taurus, Gemini, Virgo, or Aquarius Mars. And we want them to have a fire or cardinal Jupiter. And we want them to have a water, fixed, or mutable Saturn. And so, using the same method I did last time, I identified some more dates. So these dates make up the most optimal winner of Big Brother. So in 1982, you can be born December 29th, December 30th, or December 31st. In 1994, you can be born December 29th, December 30th, or December 31st. In 1995, you can be born in January 4th, January 5th, or January 6th. There are no dates in the 2000s, so I am sorry, Gen Z. In 2014, you could be born December 22nd, December 26th, December 27th, or December 28th. And in the 2020s, you can be born in the year 2020 on the dates April 20th and April 27th, or the year 2022 for the dates October 27th, December 22nd, December 23rd, December 27th, December 28th, or December 29th. So if you have a toddler at home with those any of those birthdays, train them up. They could become a Big Brother winner. Now, of all 344 Big Brother players, there is one person that shares a birthday with one of these dates, and that is Taylor Hale.
It was destined in the stars that she was going to win.
I actually do find it kind of impressive that only one person shares a birthday with any of these dates, and it's actually a winner. I was kind of like, whoa, my mind. Whew. Anyway, I wanted to do the same thing where I tried to find if there was anyone who had similar placements as the ones that I had identified. So I'm just looking at people's Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Venus, and just seeing if any of them match the combinations that I identified. And clearly we have Taylor Hale. She matches everything perfectly, and she was indeed a winner. We also have Jerry from BB3, Kristen from BB12, and Steve from BB20. Summer of Steve 2019, 2018? Summer of Steve 2018.
Summer of Steve 2018.
So clearly, you know, if Jerry, Kristen, and Steve just had different Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn signs, they would be our winners. It is clear from this information that they could have won if their Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter were just different, you know? That was the only thing not going for them. So yeah, I'm gonna stop there because this has already gone on like pretty long. But trust me, I could keep going. And I already have. I'm just not showing it in this video. When I have a thought, I can't stop with it. I have to just keep going, you know? But yeah, I've already kind of done this for AFP, top 3 AFP, my personal favorites, the most strategic players, the first boots, the finalists. I could keep going. I find this fascinating. But I do fear that this might not make sense to the general public. But if people are interested, I can do more of this, rest assured. So anyway, I hope you learned about astrology. I hope you learned about what the best Big Brother birthdays are. And I hope you enjoyed. Bye.